How does the idea of talking about dating sound to you? Well, I would guess that it mostly depends on who you're talking about it with. Talking about your crush with your friends isn't that big of a deal, but talking with your parents or your small group leader here at church, to some of you that might sound super awkward. Or maybe some of you might think that actually doesn't sound too bad. No matter how you feel about it, we think talking about dating, sex, sexual desires, and all that stuff that comes with it is too important to just skip over. But we think it's important to have conversations like the one here at church because we want what's best for you in all things, including dating. And we also know that what's best for you when it comes to dating can be difficult to figure out, especially when we all have these Instagram influencer couples that don't give us a real image of what relationships look like. And they're not all perfect pictures and funny jokes. But here's the thing, dating and relationships aren't always picture perfect. When we think about dating, we focus a lot on what we want a relationship to look like. We think about who we want to date, what we want the relationship to be like, and what kind of stuff we want to do together. And while all of that stuff is definitely important to consider, I think when it comes to dating and relationships, we often forget to ask what we should be focusing on before we even start dating. See, it's important because our answer impacts what dating looks like for us and even who we choose to date. Look, even if you're thinking, this is deep and all, but I'm not even trying to date right now, I get it. But it's still an important question for us to think about because we're laying the foundation for our future relationships right now. So even if you're not dating or interested in dating right now, understand what we should be thinking about when it comes to dating and relationships is really important even though we're not dating. So when it comes to dating and relationships, where should we look for help? How can we make sure we're focusing on the right things when it comes to dating both now and in our future? A couple thousand years ago, a guy named Paul wrote a letter to Christians in a town called Corinth. After he spent time in that city, Paul wrote to these people a message to remind them of what God says is best for them. Check it out. Here, Paul listed what God says love looks like: patient, kind, faithful, hopeful, and lasting. When we think about that kind of love, isn't it exactly what we want other people to give us? When we read a list like this, we usually see it as a long list of things we want to find in a person that we're dating. And to be clear, it's not all bad at all. God does want us to have this kind of love in our relationships. He wants us to look for these types of characteristics in other people when it comes to everything, from friendships all the way to dating. So I don't know where you're at with all this dating stuff. Maybe you're already dating, maybe you're not allowed to date, maybe you're waiting to date someone, or you're just not ready or interested in dating yet. And that's all okay. Wherever you are, you have the opportunity right now to live out these characteristics of love that Paul wrote about in his letter to the Corinthians. The reality is that God has given us all the power we need to become the type of people He wants us to be. So instead of us using dating as a way to look for the right person, let's focus on developing these characteristics of love that Paul listed for us. Let's focus on becoming love before looking for love. How can we do this? Well, first, pick one of the characteristics on Paul's list that you want to develop in your life. Maybe you could use more patience, or you'd like to be quicker to forgive, or you would want to cut back on some of your rude comments you make to those that you care most about. What if you just started by picking one characteristic for yourself that you want to grow in? Then you practice what you pick. Seriously, try it. If you have a tendency to be rude to those you love, practice giving compliments to them on purpose instead. If you tend to be impatient, practice being patient with your responses to other people this week. Or instead of holding a grudge, practice bringing up talking through something that hurts your feelings. None of this is easy, but all of it can be so good. Real love takes a ton of work. If we're going to become love before we start looking for it, we're going to need to focus on growing the characteristics necessary to be the type of person we want to date. A person who is kind, patient, honest, humble, hopeful, and all the other things that Paul mentioned. No matter if you choose to date or not, one step you can take toward becoming the person God created you to be is to practice sexual integrity. Basically, this means choosing to respond to sexual things we feel, think, and desire in a way that respects ourselves, others, and God. Dating may be a very real way for you to learn to live out the important characteristics that Paul wrote about. But if you need to know that you don't have to wait to start practicing sexual integrity. In fact, we need to put these characteristics into practice before we even think about dating someone. Think about it like this. Focus on becoming love before looking for love. Look, dating can definitely be awkward, but it won't always be that way. And when you choose to focus on the stuff that's important before you start dating, we're taking a step in the right direction. When you develop the characteristics that God wants you to have and to treat the other person the way that He created you to, it can help you practice sexual integrity, both now and in the future. Just imagine if you were dating and you could be really positive and have it be a positive experience for both of you and the person that you're dating. Even if you're not dating yet, what if focusing on becoming that loving person God created you to be could set you up for a better dating life in the future? Imagine if choosing to focus on becoming love before looking for it set you up to have the best dating life possible. I know it might feel nearly impossible and hard to talk about dating for some of you, but it's never too early to become the person that God created you to be.